The Atlanta Braves' Jurickson Profar has once again been suspended for testing positive for PEDs. The NFL release date is officially here today, as a lot of players in the NFL have begun to be getting released from their teams. And the NHL Trade Deadline is right around the corner, featuring some big names potentially on the move, and the World Baseball Classic starts today. We have a lot to talk about in this episode of the Caleb Perez Show. I knew I was going to talk about Elimination Chamber, but there have been some big news. There's been a lot of moves happening in sports, so I'm going to talk about that today. I will get to Elimination Chamber, I swear. But going over today, there's some big news to talk about today. Starting off in Major League Baseball. Sorry. Starting off in Major League Baseball, we had two players suspended for PEDs right before the season gets started. As we all know, Major League Baseball season starts at the end of this month with the World Baseball Classic starting today, which I'll talk about at the end of the video. But two players have been suspended for testing positive for PEDs. One of them is a familiar face. One of them is a new player. Start off with the new player, Johan Rojas of the Philadelphia Phillies. He was an outfielder. He is tested positive for PEDs and has been suspended for 80 games. While he is in the process of appealing those results, Johan Rojas of the Phillies most likely will be missing 80 games to start the season due to a positive PED test. Now, it's about it. This player also comes from the NL East, as the other player I'm going to talk about does, but how dumb do you have to be to test positive for PEDs? Just don't take them, dude. You know what the rules are. You know what you can and cannot take. Why are you taking this stuff? It's ridiculous. But if that it's ridiculous enough for one player to test positive once, for a player to test positive twice in back-to-back seasons is even worse. And I think you all know who the second player is. Jurickson Profar on the Atlanta Braves for the second season in a row has tested positive for PEDs. He tested positive for exogenous testosterone and its metabolites. And because of that, Profar has been suspended for 162 games. In other words, Jurickson Profar will not be playing baseball in 2026. He can play in spring training. He might be able to play in the postseason. I think he might be able to play in the minors, but Jurickson Profar will not be playing Major League Baseball in 2026, as for the second year in a row, he has tested positive for performance-enhancing drugs. It's bad enough for a player to get suspended once. As a Reds fan, I knew how tragic it was when MLB Marte got suspended for testing positive for PEDs and then acting like he did nothing wrong in the process. But for a player to be suspended for it twice, to twice be caught taking PEDs, let alone be caught 2 years in a row taking PEDs on a team where he was expected to perform this year, it's tragic. It is just sad. It's just sad. It's sad because of how ridiculous it is. Like, how dumb do you have to be to not only get busted for PEDs once, but get busted for PEDs 2 seasons in a row, and now because of it, you're gonna be missing the full season. You're costing your team a lot of potentially great results. I wouldn't be surprised if the Atlanta Braves decided, you've done this dumb shit twice, you're gone. Like, for a guy who was once known as one of the hottest players in baseball and one of the bigger pickups in baseball when the Braves got him, for him to now be suspended for PEDs twice is crazy. And Joe Profar should be ashamed of himself. Like, don't deny the allegations. You fucking did it. Don't go denying it or giving us bullshit. Admit you did it and just come forward. And then just stop doing it. It's not hard. Just don't fucking do it. It's not a difficult concept to understand. And yet it's so hard for you. You've been busted for it twice, 2 years in a row now. That's ridiculous. I'm sorry. I'm not even a Braves fan. I'm getting upset about it because it is fucking stupid. Like, just how dumb do you got to be? And that's all I gotta say is how dumb do you gotta be? And I was really looking forward to watching the Braves this year. I feel like if any roster in baseball could compete with the Dodgers and the Mets, it could be the Braves. They're not gonna do so if they're already losing players before the season even starts for stupid reasons. Anyway, moving on to the next topic of this video. So NFL has been officially roster moves today and yesterday. Players have begun to get franchise tagged. Players have elected to not get franchise tagged, and most importantly, players today have started to be released. We saw how Daniel Jones has been franchise tagged by the Indianapolis Colts. In a very great season last year, and even if the Colts still did fall short, and if Jones did end the season hurt, Jones was a really positive asset to the Indianapolis Colts, and he brought them a lot of really good results. So he did definitely deserve the opportunity to run it back with the Colts next season. We saw big names not getting franchise tagged. Kenneth Walker, the reigning Super Bowl MVP, is going to be going to free agency. He is going to be, in my opinion, the most sought after free agent, especially after that playoff performance he had last year, as well as Trey Hendrickson of the Cincinnati Bengals has not been franchise tagged, and he will also hit free agency. This will be a huge loss for the Bengals, especially for a Bengals team that has struggled monumentally on the defensive side of the football over the last couple of seasons. Trey Hendrickson was one of their most well performing pieces, and losing him is going to be a catastrophic loss for a defense that over the last couple of seasons has already been in shambles. So that's a tough one. That's a tough pill to swallow for the Cincinnati Bengals. But getting into some of the releases today, there have been some bigger names already. Mekhi Becton was released by the Los Angeles Chargers. Kyler Murray either already has or is going to be getting released by the Arizona Cardinals. And one of the leading tacklers for the New York Giants for the last few seasons, in Bobby Okereke, has been released by the New York Giants. Just to go over them in order, because these are some of the bigger ones. And again, there's going to be bigger names over this throughout the rest of the day. But to go over just some of the big ones immediately, starting with Mekhi Becton, he just really hasn't panned out in the NFL, and it's not because of his own doing. He's been hurt a bunch, and him getting hurt a bunch eventually just started hurting his stats. Had a bit of a rough season last year with the Chargers on an O-line that struggled. He was supposed to be a big piece. He kept on getting hurt. Just never worked out for him. And so now Mekhi Becton has been released by the Chargers. Moving on to Bobby Okereke, he's been a part of the Giants for a while now. I don't think he's been there for a decade, but he's been close. He's been on the part of that Giants defense for a while, and he had done some really good things for a Giants defense that had struggled. He got a lot of tackles, played great up the middle, but with the Giants struggling a lot and it looking like they're gonna be looking to revamp the defense this offseason, get some big pieces for the defense in the draft, it did look like that Bobby Okereke's time in New York had run out, and so Bobby Okereke has been released by the New York Giants. And of course, the big one, I think the one that we call new is coming for this guy, for this former first overall pick, but Kyler Murray, he has been released. To my understanding, he has been released or is going to be getting released very soon by the Arizona Cardinals. Now, Kyler Murray is a really big what if. He had amazing flashes of brilliance when he was at his best. He had some really rough moments when he was at his worst. And especially over these last few seasons, he has gotten hurt a bunch and has really struggled to stay healthy on a consistent basis. We saw that again this year. We saw the highest of highs from him, the lowest of lows, and he spent almost all the season on the injured list with yet another injury. The Arizona Cardinals, who did draft him first overall back in 2019, have officially decided that Kyler Murray's time in Arizona is done. They have released him, or are going to release him very soon. And just like that, Kyler Murray is going to be the newest free agent. It's already looking like it's going to be a pretty stacked free agency class. Now, I know Kyler has been rough. He's dealt with the injury problems, but a lot of teams are going to look at Kyler becoming a free agent and they're going to see the potential that he's always had as a player, because regardless of whether or not he's been able to stay healthy or be consistent, the upside that teams saw in him when he first got drafted and the upside we've seen in him when he's been able to play at a good rate, it is very, very positive, and he definitely was able to bring the Cardinals to a lot more wins because of how well he was able to play when he was at his best. Teams are going to see that. Teams are going to try to get Kyler Murray. he will be honest. He will be playing for a new team next season. Whether he's a starter or they're gonna have him back up for a little bit, I don't know. But I do firmly expect that Kyler Murray is gonna get picked up pretty quickly because teams are gonna see the upside that he has when he's at his best. But yeah, that's Kyler Murray. That's the football news. We've gone over the two players suspended in Major League Baseball and some of the big names on the some big names moving around right now. Um, moving on to trade news in the NHL. The trade deadline is within the next week. We saw yesterday the Nashville Predators traded AJ McCarron in the middle of a game, which was really interesting. Not even the middle of the game. He got traded during warm-ups, which was interesting. But there have been some trade news as far as rumors go, at least. I've talked about some potential guys who have been on the move already. These right now look like the top guys who could for sure be going at the deadline for a number of reasons. Not just because of where their team is at, but because the player in general may have struggled with his team and could really benefit from a change of scenery. So here are the players right now. Starting off with the St. Louis Blues, who look like they could be going into a full-scale rebuild. After making the playoffs last year, they have not been consistent. They've struggled on both sides of the puck. They've allowed a lot of goals. Blues look like they're going to be starting to enter a rebuilding phase. And it starts off with some very valuable assets, the Blues, for the last few seasons. I've talked about Robert Thomas and how he'd be going on the move. Players also on the move could be Jordan Kyrou forward, their goaltender Jordan Bennington, the starting goaltender for Team Canada, and longtime defenseman Colton Parayko. There's been rumors about Colton Parayko for years now, so I wouldn't be surprised if they finally moved on from him. It felt more and more like Robert Thomas and the Blues were going to be heading towards a divorce with not just how the team had been going on, but how it looked like his relationship with the team had just become more and more damaged over time. I'm almost fully expecting Thomas to get moved before this deadline. Kyrou is a guy who's been mentioned in trade rumors in the past. So is Jordan Bennington and the inconsistency he's had in the NHL the last couple of seasons. So yeah, those are kind of the biggest reasons why those players are the main ones. Now, for the Blues who are looking to rebuild, I wouldn't be surprised if just any name was going to be available. After all, any players available if the other team mentions the right price. But as far as the bigger ones go, who could be leaving St. Louis before the deadline, those are the big ones. Moving on to the next one, the gold medal winner on the New York Rangers, Vincent Trocheck. We've already seen the Rangers move on from Artemi Panarin, one of their biggest blue chip free agent pickups over the last decade. Vincent Trocheck isn't really a blue chip pickup for the Rangers, but he was a really big addition when the Rangers added him a couple seasons ago. He's a great penalty killing forward. He wins a lot of faceoffs. He's going to get you some really good time on the penalty kill. But again, with the Rangers looking like they're the only team in the Eastern Conference who has truly bowed out of the playoffs, and as their general manager said, is entering a retooling phase, we could see not just Trocheck, but maybe another guy or two get moved on from the New York Rangers at this trading deadline. But Vincent Trocheck has by far been the most speculated and most talked about. So Trocheck's a guy that once again I fully expect to be getting moved. Moving on is Nazem Kadri. Calgary Flames have easily been one of the worst teams in the NHL this season. They're looking to go into a full-scale rebuild, and we're going to see a lot of players get moved on from the Calgary Flames. We've heard some rumors about Mackenzie Weegar that I talked about in one of my last videos. This one, I think, is more specifically Nazem Kadri. He just simply hasn't been worth the contract he got, which I knew was an overpayment at the time. Giving that kind of money to Nazem Kadri, who's got paid like an elite player when he's never really been that much of an elite player, was beyond knowledge to me. But Kadri has simply never lived up to that contract, and he's going to be most likely on the move this deadline. I'm not guaranteeing it, because if the Flames do want to move on from Kadri, that's a really big cap hit that, in my opinion, Kadri really hasn't been worth. The Flames most likely, if they are going to try to move on from Kadri, they're going to have to eat a good chunk of that contract because most likely another team is not going to be willing to take it on. But yeah, Kadri's another guy who could be on the move. Moving on to the New Jersey Devils. While their season isn't exactly over yet, they are at the bottom half of the Eastern Conference, and their road to the playoffs is really much slimmer now. While I don't expect them to be a full-scale sell, they might try to trade away this one guy in particular, being Dougie Hamilton. Now, we've all seen Dougie Hamilton when Hamilton was at his best. He's had some very good years in New Jersey, but simply put, this season has not been good for Dougie Hamilton at all. He's struggled from the beginning of the season all the way up until now. He's not been the Dougie Hamilton I've seen in the past. And even he himself mentioned probably needing a fresh start soon. So while the Devils may not be full scale buyer sales sellers at the deadline, I do expect Dougie Hamilton to potentially be a guy mentioned in a lot more trade rumors over these next few days as we inch closer and closer to the trading deadline. Moving on, there's a couple guys in Nashville that are by far the biggest. I'm gonna get into them in a minute, but starting off with the Boston Bruins, they're searching for a top six center right now, just to get some help on the top line. And Pasta specifically, they need a top six center. Matt Poitras has been mentioned as a potential trade piece. He's been solid for Boston, but with them really in need of a top six center, Poitras could just be a casualty of war, and the Bruins needing something greater to move on to something greater because the Bruins are in the playoff mix right now, but they are really in the chaos of the wild card race, which has been super chaotic in the Eastern Conference. A lot of teams are in it still. The Bruins are going to need some help with some scoring depth. Getting a top six center could be a big piece of that. So I mentioned the Bruins not because they're going to be selling, but because they might be willing to give up a solid depth piece if it means getting some more help in the top six. But yeah, moving on to the last team, that is the Nashville Predators. Now, they're not having a terrible season. They're over 500. They lost the Blue Jackets last night. They traded McCarron during warmups, and they traded Cole Smith during the game. But they have, in my opinion, the two biggest targets entering this trade deadline, and that is Ryan O'Reilly and Steven Stamkos. I touched on Stamkos a little bit in the last video, but simply put, both Stamkos and O'Reilly are very valuable centers. They'll give you some great time on the power play. They can score goals in bunches. Ryan O'Reilly's been doing that this year. Ryan O'Reilly's had a great season. And both these guys have Stanley Cup winning pedigree. They've been to the top of the mountain before. They've won Stanley Cups before. They're going to be very, very fought after because they bring you that veteran experience because they've both been captains of their former teams. They know what it's like to outlast everybody and make it to the finals, and they know how to win. Purely because of that playoff pedigree in the past, and purely because of the veteran experience they'll bring and the leadership they'll bring to any locker room who trades for them, Stamkos and O'Reilly are going to be pursued by every single team who thinks they have a legitimate chance at making a deep run this season. Now, I'm pretty sure Stamkos has a full no movement clause. Same thing for O'Reilly, I believe. So they could be very selective as to what teams they do want to play for. But every team will try to make an offer, and Nashville will certainly be listening to all of them. There is actually one more guy that I do want to talk about. Because despite the fact that he plays for a team who's at the top of the Western Conference right now, even though he plays for a top team in the West, even though he plays for a team that's a cup favorite, I've been seeing rumors that Jason Robertson could potentially be a guy teams will look after this deadline. Why exactly, I don't know. He's having a really good year for Dallas. It doesn't look like there's any kind of heat between him and the Stars organization. Why there's rumors about Jason Robertson, I don't know. I've heard the Oilers, I've heard the Senators. I've heard a few things about Jason Robertson and maybe even Brady Tkachuk. Are they getting traded? No. I don't think. I don't think they'd be getting traded, not because those GMs may not be listening. They very well could be. I just think it'd be dumb to trade those two really good players for anything less than a lot of value in return. In my opinion, those two guys for those two teams are completely untouchable. I do not think they're getting moved at all. With that being said, there have been plenty of rumors, plenty of speculation. So while all the teams I mentioned before these two and all the players I mentioned before these two, they could absolutely be on the move at any time. These two have had some quiet rumors. So while I do not expect Robertson or Tkachuk to be traded, there are a couple names you should look out for in news and rumors, especially as we get closer to the deadline, especially when teams will be willing to trade up a lot more value to get a deadline piece that they desperately need. 20 minutes up, let's go. All right, so I just want to look at this real quick. So moving on to the baseball news. Finally, after a long time of waiting, the World Baseball Classic is finally here. It's just one game today. There's 2 games tomorrow. And then all the really good teams will play on Friday. Who does Australia play? Here. Hang on 1 second. Alright, so they're playing Chinese Taipei. That's it. So Chinese Taipei is playing Australia tonight. Sorry. I know it's been weird. But yeah. Chinese Taipei plays Australia tonight at 10 o'clock p.m. on Fox Sports 1. The game's in Japan. Tomorrow there's 2 games also in Japan. Australia versus Czechia at 10 p.m. and at 5 a.m. is Czechia versus Korea. So Czechia plays 2 games tomorrow. And then we get to the Friday schedule for Team Japan. The defending winners, the World Baseball Classic, play Chinese Taipei at 5 a.m. Cuba versus Panama. The Netherlands versus Venezuela. Mexico versus Great Britain. Puerto Rico, Colombia. I think that's Team Israel against the Dominican Republic. The United States against Brazil at 8 p.m. on Fox. And then Chinese Taipei for a second time against Czechia at 10 p.m. So, the games are all today. I don't know how we'll be able to see this. This is scheduled that ESPN posted for today up until Friday. But World Baseball Classic officially gets underway. Team USA has been the heavy favorite to win so far, even though Tariq Skubal said he's only playing 1 game, which is kind of weird. Taking up a roster spot from somebody just to play only 1 game. But yeah, Team USA is by far the heavy favorite, with Japan as a second favorite, followed by Venezuela and the Dominican Republic. But yeah, I expect Team USA to win. But that will do it for sports news today. So, just kind of recap. I mentioned a lot of stuff. There's been a lot of news. So to recap, Jurickson, Profar, and Johan Rojas of the Philadelphia Phillies have been suspended for PED testing. Profar for the full season, Rojas for half the season. Daniel Jones got franchise tagged. Kenneth Walker and Trey Hendrickson are going to be free agents. Mekhi Becton, Kyler Murray, and Bobby Okereke have been released by their respective organizations. The NHL trade deadline is within the next week, and a lot of potentially big names are going to be on the move. And the World Baseball Classic starts tonight at 10 o'clock p.m. I'll probably be watching that, not because it's between really good teams, but because I miss baseball. So be on the lookout for that. But yeah, that's gonna do it for this episode. 25 minutes long. That's the longest episode I posted in a while. But thank you guys for watching. I said this last episode. Be sure to follow my TikTok at the Caleb Perez Show. I post some clips from here onto there, and they usually get a lot more views than on YouTube. But go watch the Caleb Perez Show on TikTok. The clips I post on there. Be sure to subscribe and like the video if you haven't already. But anyway, thank you guys for watching. I will see you in the next video. Peace out, y'all.